Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Thursday, August the 3rd, 2023. Yesterday I talked about Meghan Markle. Her birthday is coming up, and I thought I'd look at her year ahead, consider how her relationship with Harry might fare, also her own career plans. Then I thought, well, okay, I've talked about Meghan Markle again, so everyone's bored of her by now, so I won't talk about her for a few weeks or maybe even a few months. But then there was more stuff about her. I suppose there's always more stuff about Harry and Meghan, but this was about how Harry and Meghan are apparently falling out or have fallen out with David and Victoria Beckham. So the Beckhams, obviously major power couple, the kind of people that Meghan Markle would want to be on good terms with. But no, apparently things are going wrong. So I want to just show you this article I found, one of many. So this article was in the Daily Record, which I believe is actually a Scottish newspaper. And so this article has the title, David Beckham left absolutely bloody furious as Meghan and Harry friendship over. So what's this saying? Reports have now suggested that this friendship is now over after suspicion arose that the Beckhams could have leaked stories about Harry and Meghan. Victoria and David were both invited to Harry and Meghan's wedding in 2018, but the royal couple were not seen at Brooklyn Beckham's wedding in 2022. So originally they appear to have bonded over the fact that David's communication director was close with Marcus Anderson, the chief membership officer for private social club Soho House, where he helped arrange dates between Meghan and Harry. Now, sources claim that the suspicions around leaked stories has left David feeling absolutely bloody furious. So you've got accusations. These accusations are said to have happened in a tense phone call, which ended up breaking their friendship up. Two ups there. The source also added, "Any making up now is so unlikely," and in his new book, royal autobiographer Tom Bower has claimed that Meghan and Harry were addicted to reading negative press coverage on themselves and spent hours online looking for any unwanted attention. And so it goes on. I don't really want to go into the details. I just want to consider the astrology of why there might have been this falling out. So before I do that, though, I want to look at what's going on today, which is Thursday, August the 3rd, 2023. So here we go. As usual, I set the position of the planets for today, midday, New York, and so this is what we've got. The moon is now in Pisces. Now, that might seem like a good thing. Pisces has this reputation for being a very sympathetic sign, very emotional, kind of quite a free-flowing sign. Makes sense because Pisces is the fish and they can sort of move very quickly and almost instantly, like the whole shoal can move at once in an instant. But this moon is conjunct Saturn. See, moon conjunct Saturn in Pisces. So it's not so good when you've got moon conjunct Saturn. That emotional free flow doesn't really exist so much while the moon is conjuncting Saturn. Now, that doesn't mean to say it's not a very emotional day, but with the moon-Saturn conjunction, emotions can get trapped. We can have very strong feelings, but we can't express these feelings very often. And it may be actually difficult to move on. Saturn just slows things down. We can get stuck in one emotional state and we can stay there perhaps forever. So we do have to be careful there, and things of an emotional nature, we have to treat the thing with a bit of caution. It's not so bad though. You can see that the moon, having made a conjunction of Saturn, it makes an opposition to Mercury. So right now you've got a moon opposition Mercury. The two communication planets. Mercury is communication of the mind, the moon communication of the emotions. So there's a lot to say, but it is an opposition. So arguments could break out if we're not careful. But the moon is making a sextile aspect with Jupiter in the end. So that does provide a certain amount of protection. It sort of protects us from being in a situation where things go completely out of control. I think when it comes to emotional matters, we have to be careful. When it comes to the whole issue of communication, we also have to be careful. There are additionally a couple of midpoints to consider. Uranus is on the Sun, is conjunct the Sun-Saturn midpoint. You see, there is Saturn, there's the Sun, and there's Uranus conjunct this midpoint. So Sun-Saturn is about feelings of frustration, not being able to express ourselves. And then Uranus is a planet of earthquakes. Uranus is an explosive energy. So, we might find that we just allow something to really build up. We're so annoyed that we cannot express ourselves, that events are holding us back, and then suddenly, bang, it all comes out. Maybe it's a fortunate release, but maybe this explosive self-expression is not helpful and it comes over as being clumsy. So it's not just us we need to think about, it's also other people. We can be as calm as we like, but it may be other people who are under this kind of pressure. So, watch out for that. Also, Saturn is opposition the Venus-Mars midpoint. There's Venus, there's Mars. So the midpoint is around there. And so Saturn is opposition of Venus-Mars midpoint. So Venus-Mars as a pair are often connected with sexuality. Venus, female sexuality, Mars, male sexuality. And then Saturn is there. So relationships could be difficult because of this. We've already seen how there's a moon conjunct Saturn, which can trap feelings, get us stuck into particular emotional states. And then Saturn on the Venus-Mars midpoint, that's not great in terms of, sexual self-expression or whatever. So deep, intense emotions, which are supposedly the hallmark of a good romantic relationship. Have to be careful there, because Saturn is going to restrict them, or maybe cause problems, misunderstandings. So things to do with sex today, with Saturn hitting the Venus-Mars midpoint, may not work out as planned. So those are a couple of midpoints that we do need to consider. Now, as far as my forecasts for the 12 signs are concerned, here they are. These are my forecasts for today, which is Thursday, August the 3rd, 2023. Aries, there are things going on beneath the surface that are difficult to fathom. You want fast answers, but really it's a time for patience. Things won't be hidden forever, and in the meantime you can do some work on yourself, perhaps finding ways to relax, away from other people and their curious gaze. Taurus, You want to go with the flow, but that might be difficult. There are just too many rough edges and not enough sympathy and cooperation. This means that your social life could be disappointing and friends could be more of a hindrance than a help. Still, there is one person in your life who does seem to be trustworthy if you give them the chance. Gemini. Geminis like to juggle, keeping at least two ideas in the air at the same time. But there comes a point where you do have to make a choice. It's the fork in the road that can't be fudged. I think a lot of it has to do with commitments. If you make new commitments, particularly at work, you'll be setting yourself on a path that may be difficult to reverse. Cancer. You're wondering how to find real meaning in life. And you perhaps realize that meaning doesn't just happen. It needs hard work. So think about what gives your life meaning, or what might give your life meaning, and get ready to apply yourself. Conversations could turn into arguments very quickly. Leo, you're not really in the mood. And I kind of mean this in a general sense. Whatever is on offer, whatever you've planned, you don't really feel like doing it. So perhaps you need to prioritize. Do what you can, put off the rest until later. Elsewhere, partners seem stuck on something, and communications may be worse than average. Virgo. There is a conjunction between the Moon and Saturn in Pisces, your opposite sign. Serious people require your attention, and if you avoid them now, they'll crop up again very soon. And if you feel that your style is being cramped, then consider the possibility that on an unconscious level you are crying out for structure. Libra. It's important to be disciplined and to watch your step. I mean this quite literally. Right now, your feet are the most vulnerable part of your body. Look after your feet and make sure you're wearing a comfortable pair of shoes. And if you own a pet, he or she might need more attention than usual. Scorpio, you probably don't want to be disturbed. There are things you want to do which require your total attention. Creativity may be fulfilling, but it can also be painful. Though with the Moon making a stressful aspect to Mercury, there may be disturbances, perhaps in the form of unwanted phone calls. Sagittarius. You can't just do the work and hope that everything is going to be fine. You have to look over things again and again just to be sure. Such an approach may be time-consuming, but it might also be essential. Also, you need to be open-minded, and you shouldn't take constructive criticism as an insult. Capricorn. Today, you are very much in control. You are calling the shots, and your charisma is at the top of the range. You're helped by Saturn being conjunct the Venus-Mars midpoint, and this gives you definite sex appeal. And while your romantic prospects are excellent, you need to have some consideration for your partner's weaknesses. Aquarius. In terms of money, there may be some work to be done. Things could certainly be better, and now might be a good time to make some hard decisions. Also, there could be many distractions. Perhaps people telling you to do everything under the sun except the one thing that you really need to do. An old structure has had its day. Pisces. There's a conjunction between the Moon and Saturn in your star sign. You're able to impose order on your immediate environment, and recent chaos can be stopped in its tracks. Just make sure that you aren't tempted to return to an old set of mistakes. And just because someone is clever doesn't mean that they are right. So it's now time to transition to the I Ching. As always, I threw 3 coins. I threw the 3 coins 6 times. And I asked the question, what is Thursday going to be like for visitors to my YouTube channel? And so the first hexagram I got was number 19, approach. And it's a good hexagram. It means that something good is coming our way. It might be a person who is approaching us. It might be a situation. But it seems to be a fortunate set of events is starting to make its way towards us. And there are 3 moving lines, and the line, this first line moves, third line moves, and the top line moves. So in the first instance, we make solid progress towards getting what we want. We're getting, the whatever is coming our way is coming faster and faster, and it looks good. But there may come a point where we are complacent. We sort of take the view, well, it's coming our way anyway. Things are going to get better, so we don't have to do anything. And of course, when we're complacent, we can lose the very thing that we want so badly. And then the top line moves, and this top line is fortunate. It really does suggest that everything is in place. And then there's the problem, because approach moves, and it moves to hexagram number 18, which is work on what has been spoiled. So it's like something is coming our way. We seem to be really close to getting something. And then there's some detail that we realize at the last moment it's not right. We're going to have to put this whole thing on hold. And so what it is, it's working on what has been spoiled. Something is not working. Something in our life maybe has been neglected. There's some detail we've forgotten. And if we don't sort that thing out, this fortunate set of events which is supposedly coming our way, or it might be a person coming our way, right now, if we do nothing, the path is blocked. So we have to work out where that malfunction is, where that part of our life that's in a state of decay, where it is. Then we've got to fix it. When we fix it, then we can start thinking about approach all over again, and this thing will carry on coming our way, and we should be able to get what we're looking for. But so look around. Firstly, think about what it is you're waiting for. This good news, this set of events which is supposed to make your life so much better, and then also think about what is blocking it, because something is blocking it, and it's not just some random external thing. It's something that we are connected with, you are connected with. So you've got to work on this thing, sort it out, work on what has been spoilt, and then the blockage will have been removed. So that's the I Ching, and I want to go back to the astrology now and consider what's going on with the Beckhams and Meghan and Prince Harry. So let's see what's going on. So let's start off with David Beckham's horoscope. So if you don't know, he's a British English footballer. He's incredibly talented in his day as a footballer. He was really a superstar as a footballer. I think he played for Manchester United, uh, and he's had a great life, and of course he married Victoria Beckham, or Victoria Adams as she was at the time, the Spice Girl. Was she Posh Spice? They became this power couple. So I did want to ask the question: what makes him a good footballer? What makes him a brilliant footballer? What in that chart makes him so good? I put his birthplace as Ilford. It's not actually Ilford. It's Leytonstone, which is sort of northeast London. It's not going to be make a big difference. I think if you're dealing with a sports person, you might want to consider their Mars. I mean, Mars is the planet of assertion, and one thing you could look at, is Mars in a good position? So we can see that David Beckham has Mars in Pisces. Mars is, in some respects, is well placed in Pisces because it's the triplicity, the water sign. The water signs are ruled by Mars, so that's good. Mars is also in mutual reception with Jupiter. So using traditional rulerships, Mars is in Pisces, which is the sign of Jupiter, and Jupiter is in Aries, which is the sign of Mars. So Jupiter and Mars are in signs which each other rule. And so I would have said that David Beckham did have a strong Mars. Matters are helped by the fact that Mars is trine Saturn. But trine's a very gentle force. It's not like a square. They're a very gentle force. And I suppose if you want to be a sports person, you've got to practice a lot. Even if you've got the natural skill, you're going to have to practice a huge amount. So it would make sense that he has Mars trine Saturn. So that's good. Another thing about being a footballer is, you've got to have a certain sort of dexterity. Of course, I'm talking about soccer, not American football. But if you want to be a footballer, you've got to run around this field for an hour and a half, and then you've got to do stuff while you're running. It's not just about brute force. So you probably need a lightness of touch. And I think it's probably useful for David Beckham, but he had Mercury rising. Look at his Mercury is in Taurus and his moon is in Capricorn. Now, the Mercury has in astrology, we can look at Mercury in different ways. It's often connected with the intellect, and David Beckham does not have a reputation as being a great intellect. But Mercury is not just about the intellect. It's all about that movement. It's that sort of fine movement that a footballer would need to have to be successful. And having moon trine Mercury with the Mercury on the ascendant. Oh, and his Mercury is in mutual reception to Venus. So I would have said that does help explain why he's a good footballer. So I would have said strong Mars. He's got a good Mercury. And why is he famous? Well, it's not just his talent. It's his talent on the pitch. It's the fact that he's got moon on the midheaven. Maybe Capricorn, which is in its detriment on the midheaven. But the moon is the public, and when you've got the moon on the midheaven, you're out there. The public can relate to you. It's great for dealing with the public. So I think that moon is working very well for him, even though it is in its detriment. So having a quick look at his chart, I think it's in many respects it's a very good chart. And I think we can see why he might have been such a talented football player. I very quickly wanted to look at another football player, just a quick comparison, and that was Pelé. I mean, I suppose most people think, who was the best soccer player ever? And I suppose most people are probably going to say Pelé, the Brazilian. The Brazilian player, famous, when Brazil won the World Cup in Mexico City in 1970. So what about him? What made Pelé a great footballer? Well, you can see that Pelé was actually born on an exact Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. So he very much was part of the era. His prime time was, his peak, I suppose the peak of everything was the 1970 World Cup, as far as I know. So through the 60s he would have developed, and so the Jupiter-Saturn gives you an iconic feel. I think he was born a couple of weeks after John Lennon. John Lennon was born in October 1940. John Lennon also had that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. So I think that would have been useful. Virgo, you see, okay, David Beckham had Mercury in Taurus rising. Pelé had Virgo rising. So again, you've got the idea of precision. Virgo is about precision. And you can see Saturn in Taurus, Jupiter in Taurus. Those Jupiter-Saturn conjunction trine his ascendant, his Virgo ascendant. Maybe, that helped him, control the ball and do whatever he had to do on the pitch. Now, as far as the Mars is concerned, now you might notice that Mars is in Libra. So he's, on the face of it, he doesn't actually have a very strong Mars, although it is conjunct the North Node. I don't think we should underestimate that. In traditional astrology, a conjunction to the North Node actually is fortunate. It's rather like a conjunction to Jupiter. I mean, when I say traditional, I'm, the 17th century astrology, the British astrologer, the English astrologer William Lilly. He has a point system, and he gives a planet extra points when it's conjunct the North Node. So yes, there is that. But there's also the Sun-Moon midpoint. So you can see he's got the Moon at 22 Gemini, Sun at 27 Libra. So he would have the midpoint at around, at approximately 25 Leo. So he had Mars semi-square the Sun-Moon midpoint. Remember, if you've got a planet on the Sun-Moon midpoint, that planet is really part of who you are. And so Mars on the Sun-Moon midpoint, he really can express the Mars archetype. And that Mars archetype is not just about being aggressive or being a soldier. It can actually be about being a sportsman or a sportsperson. And furthermore, his Uranus is exactly sesquiquadrate his Mars, and Uranus is therefore square his Sun-Moon midpoint. So he had Mars and Uranus on his Sun-Moon midpoint. And I suspect that was an important part of Pelé's success as a footballer. But I'm kind of digressing, because what we really want to talk about is Harry and Meghan and how they might have fallen out with David and Victoria Beckham. So what we would do is we would compare their charts. So let's compare, say, David Beckham's chart with Harry's chart. So there's David Beckham's chart, and there we go. So actually, this is a chart of David Beckham and Victoria Beckham. We don't have an accurate time of birth for Victoria Beckham. There is a time, but lowest on the Rodden scale. It's described as DD, dodgy data. What has brought David and Victoria Beckham together? What is the synastry between David and Victoria Beckham? Well, on the outside ring we have Victoria Beckham. Just to go back to Victoria Beckham's chart, she has on its own, she's got a Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Pisces. So if we go, there it is, Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Pisces on the outer ring. Now, David Beckham, he has Mars at 15 Pisces. So her Venus is conjunct his Mars. Not exactly, but it's close enough. And so that represents a real point of attraction. When you're doing synastry between two people, when you see Venus-Mars tie-ups, that can be a strong connection, can be a compulsive connection. It can also be about a sexual attraction when you've got Venus and Mars linked up like that. And then, so his Mars is conjunct her Venus. That's good. And then that's David Beckham's Venus at 21 Gemini, is actually widely conjunct her Mars. So there's Venus-Mars, his Venus is conjunct her Mars, and her Venus is conjunct his Mars. So that is really strong, I would have said perhaps compulsive synastry between the two, which has brought them together. Notice also that Victoria Beckham has got her South Node at 21 Gemini, which is conjunct his Venus at 21 Gemini. So Venus for David Beckham is what he's looking for in a woman. Venus in Gemini, that's what gets projected. It's conjunct her South Node. That is a type. Remember, nodes are about connection. And I suppose if you're into karmic astrology, you might say, oh, well, maybe they knew each other in a previous incarnation. But, you don't have to go down that road if you don't want to. It's just that there is a connection there. So, I think, there is definitely a lot going on there. One surprising thing is that Victoria Beckham, if you look at her chart, she's got no planets in Earth signs. Now, I don't really know anything about Victoria Beckham, but I would have thought that if she's got no planets in Earth signs, this is a compensation issue. Perhaps having stuff is important to her because she has no planets in Earth signs. And David Beckham, by contrast, Earth is fine. He's got Moon in Capricorn, he's got Sun in Taurus, Mercury in Taurus. So she's married a man who's got a lot of stuff in Earth. He's got 3 out of 5 of her personal planets in Earth signs, and so he is very much giving her what she feels she lacks. And clearly, on a material, I would have thought on a material level, this relationship has been very successful, and they've been able to complement each other extremely well. Now, what we really want to know about is Meghan and Victoria Beckham. How do they get on? Maybe there are some issues here. So we don't, as we don't have a time for Victoria Beckham, we're going to put Meghan's chart in the middle, and we're just going to see, wherever tie-ups there. So what strikes me about this is Meghan's Venus. Meghan has got Venus in Virgo. Now, Venus in Virgo, Venus doesn't really work very well in Virgo. Venus is supposed to be a free-flowing, relationship-oriented planet, trying to get on with people. But you put it in Virgo. Virgo is all about details. Thinking about what things look like on the surface, concerned about the money. Venus in Virgo can be, having a sort of a nice intimate conversation, perhaps. But Venus in Virgo is always thinking. Can't quite let go, because Venus in Virgo is always thinking about where's the benefit, where's the loss, what's in my interests. That can be Venus in Virgo. And her Venus in Virgo is opposition Meghan's Venus in Pisces. So Venus in Pisces is a really nice Venus. Venus is exalted in Pisces, whereas Venus is fallen in Virgo. So you have this image, Venus in Virgo opposition Venus in Pisces, of two women coming together and having actually a very different way of relating. Regardless of Victoria Beckham's image, it would seem of that Venus in Pisces that she perhaps has this ability to just do the Venus bit and to just relate for the sake of relating, but not Meghan. Meghan is always kind of thinking and analysing and what's in it for me and all of this kind of stuff. And they clash. Maybe Victoria Beckham has sort of worked her out. Likewise, Venus opposition Jupiter, Victoria Beckham, Venus conjunct Jupiter, that's very generous, actually, Venus-Jupiter conjunction. And then you put Venus in Virgo opposite that. Venus in Virgo is not generous, no. Venus in Virgo is kind of thinking of itself. So that's one point to make about it. Also, there is Victoria Beckham's Pluto, which is at 453 Libra. Now, both these women have Pluto in Libra, but Victoria Beckham is older. Her Pluto is later in Libra at 21 Libra. So her Pluto is exactly on Meghan's moon, and I'm wondering if Meghan might be rather intimidated by that. We talked about this intimidation when I was talking about how Meghan might have related to Camilla, Charles's the Queen Consort, because I think Camilla had her Saturn in Leo, which was hitting Meghan's planets, and that could have made Meghan feel really quite uneasy. And in the same way, Victoria Beckham's Pluto is kind of hitting her moon. So maybe this made Meghan feel nervous and defensive or whatever. She just couldn't quite deal with it, and maybe this was a precursor for this supposed falling out. So those are a couple of points about the relationship between Meghan and Victoria Beckham. To my mind, I think the fact that Meghan's Venus is opposition the Venus-Jupiter conjunction, they're so different, Venus and Virgo and the Venus-Jupiter of Victoria Beckham's Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Pisces. But I said, I know nothing about Victoria Beckham. That the Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Pisces is not, I don't think, is part of her public image, although one has to remember she was an extremely successful pop star before she was married to David Beckham. So I'm sure that Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Pisces must have helped. So as far as the connection between David Beckham and Prince Harry is concerned, I don't know how these two men get on with each other, but I think there is some scope for a disagreement. First point to make is that we've got Harry on Harry's chart is in the inner wheel. David Beckham's chart is on the outer wheel. Notice that Harry has an ascendant at 11 Capricorn and a descendant at 11 Cancer. And David Beckham's Saturn in Cancer is right on his descendant. That's quite heavy. There's something quite heavy about that. And certainly if Saturn got annoyed, if David Beckham got annoyed with Harry, I think Harry would feel that Saturn in a big way. Another thing to notice is that Harry has his Mars at 16 Sagittarius, whereas David Beckham has his Mars at 16 Pisces. So the two men have got Mars square Mars. And so when you've got Mars square Mars, there's plenty of scope for disagreement there. As soon as the issue, the right issue comes up, or should I say the wrong issue, as soon as there is a bone of contention, that Mars square Mars, they're gonna go into action, and that could cause real problems. So overall, looking at these charts, I don't find it particularly surprising that in the end they've fallen out. Yeah, that's it. There's a lot of charts there to deal with. I should probably have just looked at a couple of charts at a time and not gone on tangent about Pelé's chart. But anyway, I hope you found that useful, and forgive me for going on for so long. Anyway, I will talk to you tomorrow.